Welcome back, everybody. This is Ryan Neaters with Omni Lucid Media, and then doing the next episode of the Blackheart Paladin. So this episode is going to be on seeing the good in situations. Um, I know that's one of those cliche things, or at least it sounds cliche to me, probably because I've heard it so much. But it's something that it really does help when you're really in a bad place. If you can actually take the time and really do that, try to find, when everything seems horrible or down or depressing, or when things just seem bad, or when you're in these just horrible mindsets, or and nothing seems like it's going right. Just it seems like everything, the world's against you, bad things keep happening. It really can help to try and see the good in any of the situations in day-to-day life. um, and again, like I said, I know that sounds really cliche, and it sounds like one of those things like, oh, that sounds really easy, but and it's definitely not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's especially when you're in those moments, it's hard to pick out good things, because I know when I've been in those situations. It's really hard to see the good. I mean, it's just everything really does feel like the world's against you. You're fighting with your own mind pretty much. And then at the same time, you have to rely on your mind and your thoughts to get you out of it, and good to think of good things that are happening. um, a, so a scenario that I like to explain to people when I'm talking about this, or when I've talked to or mentioned this to people in the past. So when I was in Iraq, and there was, it's Iraq, bad stuff happening all the time, as I've mentioned plenty of times in these videos. But when I was really starting to get into some of the, really getting down on the situation, just kind of hating all of it, and just, like, what, all the why the hell are we here? What's the point? All we're doing is risking our lives. People are getting killed. People are getting injured. There's no reason for us to be here. All of that. And when I stopped seeing the good that we were doing, and I do believe that we were doing good things, but at certain times you just get down and you don't feel like that way anymore. But one of the things that really helped me was I started trying to see the good things that were happening over there. And one night, particularly, where I was sitting on guard, and it was usually guard because you're on guard and for a long time, and you're just sitting there, just watching, just staring at nothing, just waiting and watching for anything to happen. Um, so obviously you start to think about things, or you talk about whatever to the guy next to you or whatever, just to keep yourselves awake. Because you're doing it at all hours of the day, throughout the night. And all of that. But one of the days in particular, after the suicide bomber had gone off, and I was just really, really just hating everything about the place. It was one of the funnier things. There was always these donkeys that would hang out outside of our wall, and they would just usually they'd just be roaming around. It was usually two of them. Every once in a while there'd be three. So there was always one adult and a younger donkey. I don't know if they're called a foal as well, but so there was always at least one adult and then the baby, and then every once in a while, when all three were there, you had the two adults and the baby, and you could always tell that whenever the dad was around, because like you could always tell, like the mom was always the nurturing one that would just kind of be close to it and kind of nuzzle at it and all this, and then dad was the one that the baby would always kind of play with, and he'd sit there and like nip at him and bite at him. He kind of jump around and all this, and it was really a heartfelt thing to see. But that was the first thing that I was able to finally say, see, there is still good over here. Just because people are doing bad things, that there still are these good things happening, and that it just happened to come to me in the form of this family of donkeys. And it would, whenever I would see them, it always make me feel happier, because you could just like feel the love coming off of them. You could see the love of the parents for the baby, and how they were always protecting it, and how dad was playing with the baby, and he was hopping all over the place. um, I really wish I had a video camera over there for that, just to go back and watch it, because it's like something that you would see nowadays, probably, that you'd probably see on YouTube, or what's the one, Daily Mail. Um, but that was my thing. That's what got me, at that moment at least, what got me through this suicide bomber was, even though all these horrible things are happening, there was still, there was still this family. There were still these living things that that obviously cared for each other, that were taking care of one another, and that even in this bad situation, I mean, they were out in the middle of Iraq and dirt and barely anything there, but that's, they were just still there. They were happy to be there together. So that was the first thing, when I was trying to, I was trying to do kind of these mental exercises of, oh, I need to find the good in something. I need to see that there's a reason. Um, uh, I don't know about, not a reason while we're there, but just that there is still good in the world. Because when you go into this war zone and you're seeing all these horrible, horrible things, it really starts to put a damper on your perspective on just life in general. Um, one of the later ones that I found later was, because there's no light pollution, and there's not as much just chemicals and gas and all the stuff that goes along with being in a developed country, and all, with all the big cities and industrial complexes, all that stuff. The stars would just, already they were very bright. You could see way more over there than I've ever seen in America. And then we had night vision goggles on too. So if you looked up at the sky with these night vision goggles, I mean, you saw every star, ones that you couldn't see before, that they would just jump right out at you. Um, so that was one of the, again, it's kind of like those silver linings, or the small victories or whatever. And that was definitely a silver lining moment, that at least I get to look up and I get to look at this beautiful sky. um, it's one more thing to, okay, let me focus on that, stop focusing on the negative, let me focus on the good things. And that's where I can, like I say, I that's something definitely that I brought with me, back to the states, and something that I used and continue to use whenever I get into my down moods or depression or whatever may be happening. Is, I put myself through that mental exercise, and it's just like, okay, let's kind of think, what, having a crappy day, horrible things are happening. What's a good thing? What is something good that I can focus on to make myself feel better, to kind of feel better about the situation. And it's going to be something different all the time, depending what you're going through. Now, typically when I'm dealing with PTSD or my depression, I usually have to focus on something, whereas like the donkeys and the stars, that was kind of like, okay, that's like when I was starting to kind of have like these dilemmas with just life itself. Where luckily I was able to just find anything. It didn't have to be necessarily happening to me or with me. I mean, other than the fact that obviously I was witnessing it, but with the mental health stuff, with my PTSD and depression, it's it's always more of where I have to think of something specifically happy in my life, something that's directly affecting me, whether it be my family, my friends, my dogs, any of that stuff. It's like something that I have to focus on to really get me out of those bad places. My dog, my Mastiff that I have, Marshall, he's been a huge help, especially when I was, really going through the worst time of it, because there'd be plenty of times when I would start to get these, I'd start to get those dark thoughts, and I'd start to kind of get into the suicidal thoughts and that. And it would always just be like, all right, I need to get near him and just pet him. And he's kind of a big goofy dog, and he just comes over, and if you pet him, he'll put his head right up on my neck, and he's big, so he's like just as big as me, and he just leans right up against you, and you hug on him, and that's why I definitely believe in. I definitely believe about support animals. I don't know if anybody really questions the idea of a support animal. I know a lot of people. That's one thing. It does piss me off that people abuse it. Um, you'll see people like on planes, and they got like these little yappy dogs that are nipping at everybody and trying to bite people and all. It's like, okay, this dog is supposedly making you feel comfortable, even though it's like growling and barking and all that. And I'm sorry, I don't know who that would work for. For me personally, again, my dog, he's a big, calm, just kind of whatever goes with the flow. I mean, he does bark, and that kind of brings up the point when he's sitting there barking because he hears a sound, hears something outside. you know I don't feel like, hey, it's not a supportive thing. Then it's just kind of like, oh my god, you're barking, it's loud, it's annoying, and just stop. Like, that's not supportive to not supportive to me, at least, and I can't imagine how that's supportive to anybody. So that's just kind of my quick 5 second what grinds my gears kind of thing happening there. But yeah, I do hate when people abuse the whole support animal thing. They just think like, oh, I just tell people they're my support animal, and then businesses have to let my dog in, and they have to let my dog in these places that it normally wouldn't, because, oh, it's my support animal. And it kind of brings a bad name for. Sorry, Marshall's actually laying right here next to me, so he's moving around, wanted to make sure he didn't knock over my water. But that's just abusing it, just to coming up with a reason. I mean, I feel like some people, it just seems like they're just trying to get away with something. Like, hey, I got my dog in here, haha, look at me. But yeah, so anyway, sorry, I'm getting off on that tangent, and like I said, that's just my quick little 5 seconds on that. But I definitely believe in support animals, especially dogs. I mean, I'm a dog person, so I big into, yeah, have the dog around for that. And he was definitely a big one for me. There were definitely times when I was starting to get suicidal thoughts, and the only thing that really saved me was thinking of him, thinking that I didn't want to, that it wouldn't be fair to him if I take myself out, and then what's going to happen to him. I mean, I'm sure my family would take him and take care of him and that, but I still felt like that's just leaving him out in the world all by himself, type of thing. And I've had him since he was a puppy, so he's obviously very attached to me, very protective of me and all that. So he was definitely one of my, you look for those happy moments, you look for those good things in your life. And you can't focus, if you focus just on the bad. I mean, easily, just playing devil's advocate here, I could focus on, oh my god, I got this big dog, and I have to pick up his poop, and I have to spend all this money on him, and I got to take him out for a walk, and I got to do, it's easy that you could pick out the negative if you want to, but when you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. And you really, it's a hard mindset to get out of. Again, when you're in that when you're in that depression mode, it's especially hard to get out of. It's really hard not to to not focus on those bad things. But it's one of those where, like I said, you have to work at these things. I know I've said that before. It's having PTSD, depression, mental illness. It takes work. It's one of those you have to practice. I mean, that's true in life of anything. If you want to get better at something, you have to practice. So if you want to get better with dealing with your depression, you have to practice these things, these techniques, to make it better. You can't just sit back and just, say, oh, well, I mean, I guess you can just sit there and say, well, I guess I'm going to wait till this is over. But that's just going to be a long really shitty time, having to just wait it out. Or you could practice some of these things, and you could use these techniques, and try and give yourself a fighting chance of it. Try and give yourself, make it so that instead of depression stage lasting for an entire week, you might be able to get it down to 3 days. You might be able to get it down to 1 day. But you have to practice these different things. So seeing the good in situations is definitely something you have to practice, because it's not easy. All of these things that I talk about in these podcasts, they're always harder, obviously, when you're going through depression and or anxiety, or you're having anxiety about something, and or you're just hyper alert and hyper aware, and it's everything. All the techniques to stop those or to make those easier to deal with, it's always harder in the moment. Obviously, I mean, it's, you got 1,000 things running through your mind. It's hard to pick out and say, oh yeah, it's like, well, life sucks, and I can't, I don't know what to do next, and oh, I just failed my class, or oh, I just lost my job, oh, but on the other hand, at least I, went out and got McDonald's today, or whatever it may be. It's hard to pick those things out. You have to. Sometimes another one that kind of helps with trying to do the like practicing for your happy memories, or happy thoughts, or just seeing the good and stuff, is even writing things down. I mean, take the time. Like I said, it's harder to do in the moment. So what could help is, if you're like to journal, or keep track of things like that. I started journaling this stuff just so I could kind of keep track of it, and now I go back and I look at it. Especially when I'm doing these podcasts, it's helpful to go back and look at it, because I can relay to anyone watching that these are the things I was thinking in the moment. Because this is I'm bringing up things that were going on over 10 years ago. So obviously by now, if I didn't have that journal to read back on what I was thinking or what was going through my head, it would be hard for me to give you an accurate description of that. But if so if you do journal, or even if you just want to take out a piece of paper, write down the things that you're happy about, and then when you're in that moment, when you're in that funk, go find that journal, look at it, go through it. I mean, that right there, I mean, you can just sit there and you can just see like the person start to smile at it when you do those kinds of things, or at least I know, like with me, I've done that before in more recent years. That I wish I would have thought about that, or had somebody tell me that back when it was really bad. But like in more recent years, I'll sit there and I'll go through a list, and I'll just kind of look through them, and I can feel it, like as I'm going through. It's like, okay, you read number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. As you're reading through it, I can just feel the smile happening on my face, and it's just because you're reading through all these good things in your life, and it's always better to focus on the good rather than the bad. It's easier to focus on the bad, but focusing on the good stuff is going to help you out way more. It's going to be way more beneficial to you. It's gonna, it's one of those things. Happiness, and it's releasing endorphins, and it's fighting this, it's fighting these feelings for you. And all you might be doing is sitting there reading, like I said, reading a list. If you prefer visuals, get pictures. I mean, it always makes me happy when I see pictures of my wedding day. It makes me happy when I watch our wedding video that we had done. Luckily, we didn't get like the boring ones where it's just every slow little minute in the whole sermon and that. We did one, I forgot what they call them, but they're, it's like a movie style wedding video or something like that. So it actually has a, soundtrack playing and just flashing pictures and all that. So every time I watch that thing, about I get to just certain points, and then I just feel the smile hit, and I suddenly feel better because I'm focusing on the good. I'm looking at them like, yeah, because you know what, I am married. I did find my wife, and she makes me extremely happy. I have my dog. He's still here with me. He still makes me happy. He's still goofy. He still gives me big goofy smiles sometimes. Watch it. We have our other dog now as well. Watching those two play, it all brings a smile to my face. I think about my friends. I might think about just a random situation or a story, or a party, or just something that may have happened that just brings a smile to my face because I think about it like, yeah, man, I really have some good friends, and we've had a lot of good times together. That makes me happy. Um, Instead of, again, you could always focus on all the bad stuff, and the bad stuff, it's not going to do anything but help bring you down. It's going to pull you deeper into that hole that you're trying to get out of, and it's just going to bring in more of the rain clouds if you're just focusing on that bad stuff. So um, I'm trying to think if there's any other little techniques. Like I said, the writing stuff down, I'm telling you, people, that's actually a really great tool to have. It's a lot easier because you can do it when you're not depressed, and then have it ready to go when you do get depressed. um, there's always seeing the good in people. That's another one. If it's not, so to get kind of away from like the depression, if I'm just feeling down on myself, if I'm starting to kind of question the world again or whatever, and you have to look for the good in people. um, you just look for incidents that things are happening. You can go on the news, and there's a lot of bad stuff, but you can find those good things as well, where you find the um, heroic things that happen with the recent shooting. As that was a horrible thing, and most people, they just immediately focus on the shooting only, and and that's going to put you in a bad mood. It makes everybody angry. It makes them, they want revenge. They want justice for what's happened. But instead of focusing on that bad, um, focus on the good things that happened. Focus on all of the people that were there helping save others. There's a lot of veterans I know. There was a lot of just first responders, and they were helping other people. They were putting themselves at risk. They were running into all these horrible situations. That's the kind of stuff that gives you hope in humanity again when you see that. The fact that there was a group of people that said, hey, you know what, we're going to try our best, we're going to try and save some people, and we might get killed in the process, but you know what, they're going to do their best to help people. There was the one guy that got, I remember saying he was just helping people until he finally got shot in the neck or something like that, something crazy. He still lived, thank God, but it's like that guy right there. He's sitting there helping people. He kept helping until he was, potentially, I'm not sure how bad his wound was. I saw pictures where he has the bandage like up on his neck and stuff, but he was helping people until he was severely injured himself. That says a lot about that guy's character, and that just makes me feel good that there are people like that, still with us, still in humanity, and that you can, not that everything is going going to crap. Um, so yeah, sometimes you might have to look for the good situations in your community, in whatever may be happening. I Small towns seem to. I feel like small towns probably have a little bit easier than the big city places, because small towns, it's kind of that everybody knows everybody thing. So I feel, knowing everybody, I feel like that would make it a little easier. That you can relate to everybody. You might not feel like you're surrounded by strangers all the time. I think I mentioned it before, but Sebastian Unger actually explains that feeling pretty well in the book Tribe, his most recent book that he just did. I read that, and I've been like singing its praises ever since, just talking about civilization and whatnot. But Um, you know, you have to. There's good situations all around you. They are out there, even though you know, a lot of times, or hopefully just sometimes, it seems like they're not. And if you focus on the good instead of the bad, and you take the time to look for the good, that's one of the things that, like, the good things, they're there. They're happening all the time, but there's so much bad stuff that happens anymore that it's easy to miss it, and it's hard to grab onto those good things and actually focus on them because of the bad stuff. But if you do, and if you can do that, it's going to make you feel way better than focusing on all the bad. Um, it just is. It's one of those. I feel like most people, you know, have heard that, you know, hey, it's you focus on the good things. You want to do. You want to be more optimistic. I know there's, you know, pessimistic and optimistic people, but if you can be more optimistic about life, the world, yourself, your situation, it will make things a little easier. You know, it might not magically make you have a job, but employers are going to be more likely to hire somebody that comes in with a smile on their face than somebody that comes in just looking down and, you know, look all like, oh yeah, hey, I'm here for the interview, and yeah, it's okay. But, you know, you come in and you're like, oh hi, yeah, I'm here, and this looks like a fun place to work, and I want to do these things, and, you know, you're more likely to get hired there. So I mean, again, optimism is going to beat out pessimism. Um, so you know, it's not an instant cure all. As always, I always tell everybody, I'm trying to help and put out maybe some uh, exercises and things that may help you, things that have helped me. But once again, you can't look at these things as just a instant. Everything's fixed. Everything's better. It all takes work. It all takes practice. You gotta just keep trying. Don't give up. And, you know, like I always say, don't give up on the fight. Keep fighting. If you get knocked down, get back up. Just keep on going. Everybody gets knocked down sometimes. But that's pretty much everything I had for this podcast, a little bit shorter one. As always, please like, comment, share. I really appreciate anybody watching. Especially appreciate comments. I love hearing from anybody. I haven't actually heard from anybody in a little bit, so it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, I want to hear some good stuff. I'm hoping to hear that any of these exercises and techniques that I'm talking about has helped somebody or anybody in any way. It's just, like I said, I really hope this is helping everybody. What else do I need to talk about? Oh, got the t-shirts. I don't have one on because I'm still in work clothes and didn't feel like switching it all out and all that for you. I promise I will wear those. Start wearing my Omnilucid Media t-shirt here so you guys can see them and see how good they look. Super soft, very comfortable. If you guys would like them, please send me a message. We'll definitely get them sent out to you. But yeah, other than that, definitely check out the other guys, Brian Skoll or Matt Miller. And you know, as always, be excellent to one another. Have a good night, everybody.